Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Josh MacPherson, the head instructor of TSTPrep.com, where it's our mission to get your TOEFL scores quickly and easily as possible. And I am pleased to have Srikant join us again to talk about some follow-up questions we had about the home edition of the TOEFL iBT. It was released in March, a couple months ago, to address the pandemic issue so people can take the test at home. And it's been a great response, but also there's been a lot of questions as well about the test and how it's administered. And Srikant has agreed to come back to answer some of those questions. So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to come back and talk a little bit more about this.
Thank you, George. It's a pleasure to talk to you again, and very happy to answer any follow-up questions on the TOEFL iBT Special Home Edition.
So there are some questions, and I want to get into them so people can stop asking me these questions. So the first thing, the big thing, is note taking. So as far as students know, I'll just kind of give a summary and let me know if that's correct. So students can use a whiteboard, which is a little whiteboard that can fit on their desk to take notes, and they can erase those as well as they're taking the test. Or they could have a piece of paper with a plastic sleeve. Unfortunately, I don't have, oh, maybe I do. Like with a plastic sleeve, I guess there shouldn't be any writing, but something like this, and they could put one piece of paper in here.
Right.
And they can just use this only one piece of paper, but they can have an eraser and erase those notes if their page gets filled up. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. So I think it's important for people to make sure they have dry erasable markers. Okay. Whether they use the mini whiteboard that can fit on a desk, or they use the paper inside the transparency sheet. It's important to make sure they have dry erasable markers because at the end of the test, they will be asked to erase everything on the whiteboard or sheet and show it to the proctor, right? That's really important. And depending on how many notes somebody takes, they may need to erase it through the test so that they can reuse the page. So that's why it's important for them to have the dry erasable marker, but also have ways to erase it through the test as much as they need. And that's why we only allow one of these things, right? So they cannot have multiple whiteboards or multiple transparency sheets. But they can absolutely reuse them as many times as they want during the test.
Another question that I get a lot is when students actually go to register for the test, they can't see the dates until after they pay, pretty much. Is that correct? And what's do you have any advice for students nervous about paying without seeing the schedule?
Yeah. So again, I realize this is not an ideal solution, right? So ideally, someone should be able to look at this exact dates that are available to them before paying for the test. But because we had to come up with a solution really, really quickly to help students during this crisis, this is the arrangement we were able to make with our scheduling partner, ProctorU. So that's the system we have. Yeah, it's actually 4 times a week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4 days a week, but 24 hours in each day. So every hour there's a new session that begins, and there's still plenty of capacity. So students have a lot of options, and right now they can still get almost any day or any slot on the day that they want. Some will be more popular than others. But if a student has the flexibility to take it over a period of days, maybe a couple of weeks ahead, a month ahead, then they have a lot of flexibility. So we haven't really had any major issues where someone has not been able to find something that's reasonable to fit in with their schedule.
Another question comes up about the Mac, so that some students, they only have a Mac, they don't have a PC. But I think you mentioned that as long as you have a Windows operating system, you can take the test. How does that work exactly?
That's right. Yeah. So we listened to concerns that many students had about being able to use Macs. So we've come up with an option that's been available for a few weeks now, where they can still use their Mac as long as it has a Windows operating system installed in it that is used for this purpose. I want to clarify that this solution will not work with an iOS operating system. It has to work with Windows, but it could be on a Mac computer.
So now after a student registers, they can schedule the test within a shorter time period now. Is that correct?
That's right. That's another improvement we've made recently. So previously, after registration, when you went to schedule the test, you needed to schedule a test 72 hours in advance of the actual session. So we've dropped the 72 hours requirement to 24 hours. So that greatly simplifies students, simplifies the planning and scheduling of sessions for students as a result. It's not been an issue from what we've been seeing. It's important to point out, though, that for the special home edition version of the TOEFL iBT test, the expected score turnaround time is between 6 to 10 days. For the IBT test that's taken in a test center, it is 6 days, right? So in this case, it may take just a few days longer to get scores compared to the test center version. And it's important for people to realize that there's a difference there. But it should not take more than 10 days unless something goes wrong, and it hasn't yet. So if some students have had issues, we apologize for that, and we'll absolutely resolve those issues on a case-by-case basis. But it should be between 6 to 10 days. Version that's done in the test center, right? The traditional TOEFL iBT. Even over the last 6 weeks or so that we've had the special home edition available, it never went away fully, right? Okay. It was always available in some countries where it was safe and legal to do test center testing. So it has never gone away fully. And in some countries, people have had the option to do the test center version or the special home edition version as well. And that's where it stands today. So obviously, as things start coming back in many countries, we're starting to open up more and more test center testing again. And over the next few weeks, we'll do more of that, including here in the US. So I think people will find that test center testing is more easily available looking forward, but they still have the option to do the home edition until the situation comes back to completely normal. And we don't know when that will be the case. But until the situation comes back to completely normal, we will still continue to offer the home edition as an option. And right now, of course, registrations for the home edition are available till the end of June. And we are reviewing at this point whether to extend registrations for beyond June at this point. If the home edition is offered in the country, it's available to everybody in that country, regardless of whether they're in a place where test center testing is available or not, right? So if it's available in Japan, for example, or India or anywhere, it's available to everybody in that country. So, we will continue to offer the home edition until such time that things go back to fully normal, right? So that people have a choice. Because until things come back to normal, we won't be able to meet all the capacity with just one or the other of the products. So we want to be able to offer both. But because we don't know when that situation will come back to normal, we have offered the home edition until the end of June at this point. But we are reviewing right now whether to extend that period. But we will do it progressively and monitor the situation. And we've not had even one university tell us that they do not accept the scores from the iBT special home edition version, right? Some universities have confirmed their acceptance of the home edition on their website, but many have chosen not to do so because in their view, it's just the iBT. It's a different version of the iBT. And that, if they just talk about the iBT, that's good enough, right? So that's what I want students to understand, that the iBT is accepted almost universally by the iBT home edition is accepted almost universally by universities worldwide. With regard to the licensing boards in many professions, you're right in that Some have chosen not to accept the special home edition version of the IBT test, and there's not much more we can do about that. It's obviously entirely their decision, and we have no updates to provide on that score. The one thing I will say though is that we realize that some students cannot use the home edition to fulfill their requirements for these licensing boards. So what we are doing is we are trying to add more dates and more capacity for when test center testing does resume in many countries, so that people can take the test center version more easily and fulfill their requirements by doing so.